I'm going to add a bit of a disclaimer. This video does mention concepts of suicide and suicide ideation. If you are feeling like you are in danger or not feeling mentally well, please reach out to resources in your area. I have included a list of relevant resources in the description below. Please enjoy the video. Welcome to the final video in my Wild Youth series. Today we'll be going over Alive featuring Run by Dabin. Please be sure to check out all of the other 4 parts before watching this video. I think it's important that you've watched all of the parts, and I don't want to recap them in here when you can just go back and watch them. Click the little exclamation mark and it should have the playlist to all of the videos, and if you've already watched them, then we're gonna get right into it. Let's start with the Alive summary. Like I just said, this is the last song, and I'm not gonna lie, I spent most of my time on this song. It's been out longer than the others, and I've been listening to it since it dropped. It really takes us from the vibe I was talking about in Bloom. In Bloom, we think we want to stay where we are, because where we are is safe. And this really flips that notion on its head. We're starting to realize that we won't always belong where we feel safe. Sometimes we're gonna have to leave those places and search for our next chapters. We acknowledge the pain that comes with moving to the next chapters, but we also realize that through these journeys, we start to truly feel alive. And as we keep progressing through life, we start feeling more and more alive. We understand that those past images we had of how great we thought our life was, the life before all of the pain, they aren't really as great as we thought they were after all. As we progress, we start becoming stronger, and we understand that this process is what it means to be alive. We find joy in the process that used to scare us, not because we won't ever be scared again, but because we know that even though we are scared, we are alive. That's an aspect of being alive, and the place where we want to be is alive. Now we'll get into all of the lyrics.
Sometimes it feels like I don't belong here.
See, with this line, I can see it through a few different angles. The most obvious one being that this is a reflection of the times where we didn't feel alive or felt like we were just taking up space. But the way I choose to look at this line is a reference back to where we were in Bloom, back to that place that we didn't want to leave. It's a shift to realizing that we can't make a home here. We are the home. In order to grow, we need to keep moving forward. If we feel like we don't belong somewhere, we move on to a place where we feel like we fit. So if we go from Bloom to Alive, this is quite a dramatic shift in thinking patterns and tone.
Roots can't take hold 'cause I didn't fit.
This is another reference to growth and how we can't stay in the spot where we feel like we don't belong. We are feeling that way because we can't thrive in the space we're in.
I can't see the way out through all my tears.
I see this as an acknowledgement that we are beginning to understand that sometimes the path isn't obvious. Sometimes the paths out of different areas of our lives aren't easy. This also references that we are feeling things. We are feeling so deeply that we are filled with tears. There are so many tears that it's hard for us to even see. Sometimes our emotions make it difficult to find the right path, but our emotions also make us feel alive, so we're balancing them.
And I know they always say to hold on for better days.
This is an interesting line in the sense that I see it as deconstructing a cliche. The notion is that, like, if we just keep holding on, everything's gonna be fine. That's how society tells us not to give up or to walk away. Because if we stay there, they think that we can just fix them and we'll make them work for us. But if all we're doing is holding on, all we're doing is surviving. We aren't actually alive. We're not living our lives, we're just surviving and holding out until maybe things get better.
I didn't think that I could make it. Came close to giving up every day. Ooh, the fact I'm here is kind of amazing.
With this line, it's hard to ignore the obvious sense of raw emotion around any feelings that may exist within the listener around thoughts of dying or losing the will to live. I think for anyone who has experienced these types of headspaces, this line really hits hard in the way that we almost need it to. When I read this line, that's not all I pull from it. What I also pull from it is a celebration of accomplishments. Through everything, we were able to move through it. Through all of those times we wanted to give up, we were able to move through all the darkness, through being burned, being lost, being stuck, and we made it here.
It's funny how destiny brought out the best in me.
For me, this is a parallel of the line, "Tell me again, was it fate that stole my soul?" from the song Home. It's a reference to the same type of energy. I personally see this as acknowledging that with different framing of a similar concept, it changes our outlook on the situation. It changes how we view life. It changes how we view and how we control destiny or fate.
So
I see this as a message to self to really embrace self-love. Flood is a reference to the tears from earlier and a notion to let them keep coming if that's what we really need right now. It's permission to really feel them if we need to feel everything, every emotion tonight, right now.
Surrender till it's all too much. I'm giving in to the
This is allowing yourself to feel things, feeling out your limits, but also knowing that right away you might need to set boundaries. Acknowledging there might be times where it's all too much. Stepping back is okay because you've set up these boundaries out of the love for yourself. But boundaries don't mean shutting down completely. They mean stepping back. But at the same time, we're also giving in to the rush. We're allowing ourselves to feel. We're not afraid of feeling them. We're letting ourselves do it until it's too much.
I've never been. No, I've never been so alive.
This is a reference to the past and how you thought you missed the past. But right now you're realizing that in this moment, you're alive. You got to a place on your path. Because of that, you're more alive now than before. So if you look back on the past, you weren't actually alive. So all of those memories that you thought were the way you wanted to live, and if you did accomplish some of those, you may even look back and say, but was I actually living at that point? When you reach this point, right now, when you hear this line, that's when you know that you feel alive, and you feel alive. It's not even just feeling alive, it's, I've never been so alive, so you're actually alive. It's not just feeling, it's being.
Feels like I'm breathing in for the first time. Wide open eyes, I'm seeing it all.
Remember the ashes we talked about from In Flames? Remember how it was hard to breathe? Remember how in home, all that was left was the ashes, there were no lungs? Well, breathing feels different because we're alive. Our eyes are open, and we've let light in.
For the first time in years, I know I'll be alright.
I think this line speaks to the line, I know they always say to hold on for better days, and it challenges it with, I know I'll be alright. This points out that even if we don't hold on, we're still gonna be alright. Because letting go doesn't mean we're giving up on life. Letting go means we're moving on to what's next. So, when people say to hold out for better days, or holding out for better days, is being alive. And then this also, in terms of Bloom, where we were worried about if we could keep moving forward and what was next, and we were worried about letting go. At this point, we know that we're going to be alright. Even if we travel down the wrong path and we need to backtrack, we still know we're going to be alright.
Look how far I made it now. Now that I made it out, I don't wanna waste any more heartbeats.
This acknowledges how part of being alive is a sense of pride you feel when you are able to let go of the places you aren't growing in anymore. If you're going to wait in the space, it should be one that makes us feel alive. We shouldn't waste moments of our lives on things that are taking away from us feeling alive. And I also see this again as like leaving this state of bloom, because we've made it out of that space and we've made it into this space and now we feel alive. So we run from that fear into a place of really feeling alive, and that wouldn't have happened if we took the steps into this new space.
I wanna see what I haven't yet. Oh, the whole damn world is waiting there for me, and nothing can hold me back, and maybe I'm fine with that.
Look at the growth again from bloom to alive. This section truly captures that. We aren't just going to stay in bloom, we're going to explore the world. We're going to move past that feeling of needing to stay stuck, and we're going to keep moving forward, and we're really going to explore. We're starting to understand that it's okay to explore, and we are allowing ourselves to let go to do that.
I wanna live, I wanna be right now.
This line really fills me with similar emotions to the one I've referenced before about feeling like you won't make it. The contrast of being worried for your life to wanting to be alive and allowing that to drive you. When we talk about death, especially suicide, there's a very clear picture painted in the media around what being suicidal looks like. Suicidal doesn't always look like wanting to die. Sometimes, suicidal looks like not enjoying life, progressively enjoying less aspects of life, trying to grasp for something, anything that gives you a sense of purpose, a sense of wanting to be alive but failing to find it. We don't acknowledge how often people who are suicidal search for reasons to be alive. Oftentimes, they want to be alive but nothing is working. I think this song really speaks to people who have experienced this. For me, it really helped knowing that there isn't one specific thing that made me feel alive. I can't put all of my stakes into one thing. It's just not viable. The way I see it, we really need to slowly build up more and more reasons until they start filling us with the feeling of wanting to live. These reasons can be small, like wanting to hear your favorite band release an album, or they can be large, like wanting to see someone you care about reach a milestone. Both of those help us build up a library of reasons to live. They help fuel that flame that I keep talking about. Even the small things are important in this sense. This is the exact reason so many different mental health resources push gratitude and recovery. I've been in a place where gratitude felt silly, but I've come to realize it's honestly really important to get through these types of obstacles. The other thing that this song says with I want to live, I want to be right now, it says that I want to be, and I want to be right now. It's really acknowledging that we want to be present. In Bloom, we were worried about what's going to happen next in the future. In Home, we were worried about the past, but right now, we just want to be. We want to be present, we want to be grounded, and maybe that's part of why we feel alive.
I wanna scream till my lungs give out.
I really like the progression of the use of lungs. When we were at In Flames, our lungs were filled with ashes, and it felt like the end. Now, we are planning to use those lungs until they give out. Whatever that may be, there's an element of control. We are alive, so we'll use our lungs. We aren't afraid of them giving out. We will take up that space, and we will scream, we will use them.
Oh, this is what it means to be alive.
This line wraps up all the previous concepts in the song by affirming that everything combined is being alive. Feeling yourself breathing, allowing yourself to feel things, allowing yourself to move from places that make you feel like you aren't thriving, appreciating the places you travel and the experiences you have, but not living in them, not getting stuck in them. When we combine everything from all the lessons from every song, we get to this point, and this point is alive. Not every listener will be there yet, and that's okay. This entire EP outlines a process to get there. This doesn't happen overnight, but each step was important. Without each song, we wouldn't be here. Everything we learned in all of these songs led up to this moment.
And I wish the time would just slow down. I can't get enough of life right now.
If you're someone who is experiencing like this feeling for the first time of like actually feeling present, alive in the moment, you really don't want it to end. You can't get enough of it. And that can start sounding a lot like Bloom, but based on the framing of this song, we know we're in a different space. So we're using that, not out of fear, but we're using that feeling so that we actually take it in. We're telling ourselves that we need to experience this right now. We can't get enough of it, we need to keep experiencing it. We're not experiencing it out of fear of it leaving, and there is a difference. We still wish that time would slow down, but it's a different approach this time. The desire doesn't keep us stuck. It's acknowledging the emotions that come with enjoying something, but without getting stuck. The use of the word life here shows me growth from the last song. In Bloom, we were stuck in the moment, but in Alive, we acknowledge the entirety of life. We can't get enough of it, even with the bad elements. With this part, these lyrics were added only in the acoustic version, and if I'm being honest, these lyrics were essential for the entire story.
Yeah, I'm finally feeling something. Yeah, I finally feel alive.
This is an acknowledgement that we no longer feel empty, but that we feel alive. As I mentioned before, this is truly an affirmation to the present moment. We don't just know what alive is. We don't just want to feel alive. We feel it right now. Finally, we feel alive.
'Cause I know what day is coming when the sun will rise.
This takes me back to Bloom. I referenced summer and how there was a notion of wanting to stay where it was warm. This acknowledges that even if we move forward, the sun will still rise. It might not always be as warm as summer, but the source of heat will come back, even in the coldest of winters, and even after the cloudiest days.
Made something out of nothing, found something deep inside.
Before, we were void of emotions and empty. Once we started looking inside, we found that flame that was keeping us alive. We don't feel nothing anymore, we feel something, because we know we are something. We are alive.
And I'll always keep on running, that's what it means to be alive.
In order to keep living, we need to keep moving forward. And of course, this is by Run, so Run is gonna keep running. And this kind of just wraps up the entire song by saying, like, this is what it means to be alive. I think this line really just kind of concludes the entire story from start to finish. And now we will get into the final stage of grief, which is acceptance. The most obvious way that this is captured is that we've accepted that we are alive. We want to be alive and we want to feel alive. We have also accepted the process of life and the need to progress from one place to another. We have accepted the importance of taking care of ourselves and not being at war with ourselves. We have accepted that emotions are important, all emotions, not just positive ones. We have accepted that how we view the things we control matters. We have accepted who we are, where we are at, and where we are going. Well, this concludes my analysis of the Wild Youth Acoustic EP by Dabin. I hope you've enjoyed the journey. The Wild Youth EP really seemed to outline the 5 stages of grief, and I think it's pretty relevant with COVID isolation we've all been feeling. I am, however, planning to go into the original Wild Youth album to deconstruct some of the themes within it, so please be sure to like and subscribe so you can see that content. Thank you for watching this series, and I hope you enjoyed it. See you later!